What's up? Let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt two conflicting emotions at the same time? Let's be clear. Have you ever felt love and resentment for the same person? Maybe you have and you're aware of it. Maybe you have and you aren't aware. In this teaching, I'm going to talk to you about it. I want you to stay tapped in and locked in because I need to talk to you about resentment and relationships. Don't wish it was easier. Wish you were better. You know, one of the things I've learned is that it is possible to have multiple emotions coexisting at the same time that are often contradictory. What do I mean? I mean, it is possible to feel conflicting things about the same person. And this is something that I feel like is a reality in a number of different relationships. Now, when I use the word relationships, let me be clear. I believe there are a few types of relationships. So here they are. I believe there are what's called casual relationships. These are like friends and associates, right? Then I believe there are kindred relationships. These are people that are part of your family. They are your kin. Then I believe there are corporate relationships. These are relationships that exist within the context of the workplace, right? These are people you've met and you fraternize with simply because your work has caused you to have, your work has intersected your lives together. And then there's kingdom relationships. These are relationships that are developed because maybe you go to the same church or because you share the same faith. So those are the types of relationships, all right? What I'm saying is in all of those relationships, there can be conflicting emotions that exist in kindred relationships with family. There can be conflicting emotions that exist in casual relationships with friends. Conflicting emotions that exist in corporate relationships with coworkers. Conflicting emotions that exist in kingdom relationships with people who share your faith. And I don't think the reality of these conflicting emotions is talked about enough. And I think that it's important for us to spend some time exploring and unpacking the realities, conflicting emotions, so that we can manage them properly. And one that I feel like is extremely important, yet often overlooked, is this conflicting emotions of love and resentment. I'm telling you this, I've been in the people business the majority of my adult life. Some people do animals for business. Some people do numbers for business. Some people do clothes for business. Some people do equipment and technology. Some people do lights. Some people do cameras. Some people do food. Some people do tools. You name it. All I've ever done is people. And I am telling you that very often, love and resentment exist in the same relationships. There are people who love their parents, got a little resentment toward them. There are parents who love their children, got a little resentment toward them. There are siblings who love each other, got a little resentment toward them. There are spouses, yes. Husbands and wives, yes. Facts. Eating at the same kitchen table, sleeping in the same bed together, living in the same home, that have love and resentment. Here's the issue. I think some people feel like it's almost inappropriate to have both of those conflicting emotions. So because they feel like it's inappropriate, they ignore one of them. They ignore the resentment because they assume that if you ignore it, you evict it. When the truth of the matter is, when you ignore it, it simply evolves. So what I want to do today is I want to deal with and talk a little bit about the root of some of this resentment so that we can deal with the resentment at the root so that the love can increase and resentment can decrease. How many would want a little bit more of that in your relationships? Come on. You would want love to increase, right? And resentment to decrease. But you cannot conquer what you won't confront. You can't address what you won't acknowledge. And I'm not saying that everyone has the same type of resentment, but I'm saying if you're looking at your corporate relationships, your kingdom relationships, your kindred relationships, your casual relationships, and you don't see any tinge of resentment toward anybody in any of those categories, I am going to question your level and your degree of self-awareness. I'm going to say that again. I'm going to question your degree of self-awareness. When I say resentment, this is what I mean. I don't mean indignation. I don't even mean anger. I mean a negative emotion that's associated with being treated unfairly or unjustly. That's all I mean. So resentment has ranges. I think people do this with racism, right? You can say, hey, I think there's a little racism there. And when you say racism, people think Nazi, they think Klan. And it's like, yeah, that's an extreme expression of racism. That's not the only expression of racism, right? Racism has a range, like sexism has a range. Like someone can be just all mired in toxic masculinity or pitiful patriarchy, but there are ranges of that. So just because someone isn't super high in extremism doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Same thing applies to resentment. Just because you're not angry enough to throw things or angry enough where it's adversely affecting your day doesn't mean resentment doesn't exist. There are degrees of it. And I'm saying to whatever degree exists, if it's not addressed, it increases. I'm going to say that again. If it's not addressed, it increases. And when that increases, love decreases. Man, I don't even, like, this teaching isn't even about this, but when I tell you, I have seen this so many times, specifically in romantic relationships. So when people say, like, I just kind of fell out of love, I'm getting ready to show you in a minute the root of resentment, but I'm just telling you what happened. The love didn't just go down, some resentment went up. It started off small, it wasn't addressed, and then the compound effect took place. So something else happened, and it was compounded. And something else happened, and it was compounded. And something else happened, and it was compounded. And it's very difficult to feel close to and want to be intimate with something that's hurting you. Who runs to what hurts them? Come on, like who? Let me run to them, they hurt me. Who wants to keep talking to someone that's not listening? I can't wait to get home and talk to them and they not listen. So it's a negative emotion associated with being treated unfairly or unjustly. So to say I have not even a tinge of resentment is to say I've never been treated unjustly or unfairly by people who were kin to me, by people that were friends with me, by people that I work with, or by people that I worship with. It's there. So how do we deal with the root of this, right? How do we deal with the root of this so that the resentment goes down and the love goes up? So let's deal with the root. What causes resentment? This negative emotion associated with being treated unfairly, unjustly. Here's the first thing. This is important. And I want you to think about some of your relationships and whether or not this has happened to you. This is what's scary, guys, and I deal with this all the time. Remember, I'm in the people business. I can't tell you how many people have been in abusive situations, maybe not physically, but like verbally and emotionally abusive situations, who were in it and didn't even know it was abusive when they were in it. So just because I'm not aware of something doesn't mean I'm not dealing with that thing. And that's the case when it comes to resentment and the roots of it. So very quickly, here are 3 roots. Here's one thing. Number 1, this is what causes resentment: contempt. What's that, Dharius? It's a feeling that a person or a thing is beneath consideration, worthless, or deserving scorn. All right, so it's the feeling that a person is. So when a person never considers you, that's contempt. Now, so you mean to tell me never in your life, whether it was somebody you were friends with, somebody you were kin to, somebody that you work with, or someone you worship with, you have never felt like people didn't consider you? When we find ourselves in situations where we're regularly not considered, one of the fruits of that root is going to be resentment. Here's the second one. I've seen this a lot too, especially in romantic relationships: control. Reasonable people don't mind being influenced. But God did not create humans to be controlled by other humans. God doesn't even control humans. He influences your will. He doesn't even control it, and He can. He gave us the power of choice and does not violate that power of choice. Even when we make choices that dishonor Him and may be damaging to us, He doesn't violate that free will. And when someone tries to take from you free will, that which God won't even take, do you know what that creates? Resentment. And many people, especially in romantic relationships, feel like they're being controlled. And you know what that was creating? You know what that's creating on the inside? Resentment. And here's the last one: continuation. Let's say you're treating me with contempt. Let's say you're being controlling. If I articulate to you and communicate to you, this is the way you're making me feel, or this is my experience in this relationship, and you continue to do it, you know what that creates? Resentment. So when we see contempt, when we feel control, and when we see continuation, we got to adjust our expectation and set boundaries. Because if not, we will be feeding the monster of resentment. And that resentment is going to go up, and the love is going to go down. So watch out for contempt, watch out for control, and watch out for continuation. Because it is very possible to have love and resentment at the same time. But my hope is your love goes up and the resentment goes down. All right, here's to thriving in relationships. Take care.